that working?
I think the battery.
My power's flashing. Anyway, we do have a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order. First item is the adoption of the agenda. Any questions? Additions? None. Next is the declaration of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest.
Are we myself?
Councilor
8.4.
Harder,
8.4.
8.4. Before we go any further, just a very brief announcement. We have lost a counselor. Councilor Moraine has submitted his resignation from council for personal reasons.
Oh, well.
So we'll look at, I guess, the next meeting or whatever in replacing him. Item 4, delegations, presentations, or petitions. 4.1, the RCMP report. You're on. Yeah, you won't need your handcuffs or gun for this.
No, sir.
Hopefully.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm continuing in the acting detachment commander role.
Your microphone,
Oh, sorry.
there's a button on the side, yeah.
And then that one. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm continuing in the acting detachment commander role and likely will be until midsummer. So I'll just go through the report as we normally do. Then I'll speak of some of the work that we've been doing recently. So for the month of March, there were no significant events reported this month. Territorial court began to be in full swing again. Obviously, it's been a couple of years, so there is a massive backlog. I think our first court circuit was 38 pages, which is just remarkable. And many of those folks had their issues delayed during COVID because there's been no seatings. So that's created a great deal of administrative work on our end for our detachment. Of course, we work closely with the Prosecution Service of Canada. They organize and request certain things for court disclosure for prosecution. And that is, it's probably the biggest that I've seen in my time in the North right now. So there's, we're working hard to stay ahead of the curve or stay ahead of the wave with that. As far as the hockey tournament, I was away in the month of March on holidays, but it was nice to see that there wasn't any uptick in reports during the hockey tournament weekends. We did bring in extra personnel for those weekends just to be sure that we had a good service level. There was 84 calls for service, so that's cumulative of both Friday, Saturday, and Sunday periods of each weekend, and that the majority of calls did not relate to the tournament or its participants. To go through categorically, March there was 29 assaults that were reported to police. It's just an increase of 1 from last month. Sexual related offenses were 5. Break and enters, which include both the residents and businesses, was 3. There was 2 business and 1 residence that was broken into. Mental health related files or assistance to the hospital files at 10. Theft under 5,000, 7 files. Theft over 0. Drug possession. Nowadays, you'll likely will never see any numbers in those categories. Law enforcement's efforts concentrate only on drug trafficking nowadays, and that's directly from the federal government directives to police. Liquor Act, 27 files, so those encompass mostly people that are just intoxicated in public and unable to care for themselves. So the police make efforts to relocate them. Most often, our first choice is the shelters. That is the best place for people to go as opposed to jail. Sometimes there are issues with people that are having too much to drink. When those evaluations are made, we'll take people to the hospital or have to get mass transport them. And then in some circumstances, people will go to cells. Causing a disturbance, these are the vast majority of our calls, a number of them daily, causing a disturbance, which really is just being intoxicated, swearing, or causing a ruckus basically in a public space. And mischief, so that's people that are intoxicated inside of a house or inside of a business. Impaired driving complaints were at 7, and other complaints 132. So there's a bunch of categories that encompass what other complaints. Our victim services referrals, we do try to make these as often as possible. The police are moving towards more of a what we call trauma-informed, client-centered provision of service. Whereas people, unless they are deemed to be in extremely high-risk categories, people are given the right issues, whether they want resources offered to them or to be put in touch with resources, as opposed to having a top-down approach of the police or other agencies determining what's best for them. Yeah, and you can see for sort of justice referrals, there was no emergency protection orders that were initiated at the detachment level. So in our annual performance plan for community priorities with family violence, there's 29, so an increase of 9 in terms of assaults, including 2 reports of assault with a weapon, and regrettably 5 of these matters involved intimate partner violence. 6 of the matters were cleared by criminal code charge and 4 remain under investigation for further evidence gathering. The remainder have been investigated and files have been closed. There are a lot of times where violence occurs where neither person wishes to have anything done or they refuse to participate in furthering that investigation. Outside of intimate partner violence, the police are not or obligated in intimate partner offenses to lay charges. But outside of that, sometimes it is entirely up to the people that are involved. We continue to work closely with victim services, social services, and the health authority. This month, members of our detachment met with social services workers, victim services workers. We have a number of new people, as always, to complete orientations with those services so that they know when they're providing service to people they interact with on calls, that they know exactly what those agencies can do to better improve the lives of those people. Referrals are being made, and of course we're working as diligently as we can to make sure these are made in a timely manner. 3 members of the Inuvik detachment presented to a group of students on the topic of family violence and identified supports, so that was in the school. Road safety, there were 7 reports as mentioned there. Impaired driving, matters was cleared by criminal charge. 2 remaining under further investigation. The remainder have been closed after investigation are deemed unfounded. So an example of an unfounded would be, and it does happen, where somebody may be either not paying attention to the road, maybe making a call on their phone, they swerve, somebody thinks they may be intoxicated, or police interact with them, maybe an ASD is used, and that there's no indication that that person is intoxicated. It's great that people call it in, and we continue to encourage that. So we had a planned impaired driving investigators course. There's a lot of change in the laws in 2018 for impaired driving offenses. That was going to be a traffic unit out of Yellowknife that's been postponed. Given the upcoming spring weather and more notice on the road, we'll be directing members to conduct more traffic checkpoints, especially over the weekend periods. And we'll always partner up with municipal enforcement when we do that. Community and cultural awareness, including youth. So it's great that we're lifting these public health act restrictions as a police to be able to go back into the schools and visit with the children and youth. And members did a talk on theft to some junior high school students, as there was some issues with theft of school property. This also gave our members a chance to connect with and introduce themselves to a number of the students. And a safety talk took place at Children's First, where members discussed road and pedestrian safety. And over the course of the 2 hockey tournaments, there were several visits made to the arena. pressure on our players. So the RCMP in town continue to make efforts to provide a high level of service to those residents of Inuvik. We're planning to initiate regular foot patrols in the downtown area this summer. That's something that I kind of have done since I've gotten here, even as a constable. Walk around, meet business owners, see if there's any issues. Go into little nooks and crannies and poke around, and I think it's a good thing for the police to be outside of vehicles and be seen and visible. So if not mentioned in the previous report last month, request was made by Councillor Wayman to have Crime Stoppers posters put up, and so I saw I believe 6 were put up in various locations in town where people congregate. In closing, I guess I would say that I know that there's probably a lot of curiosity about the theft from Inuvik Hall over the weekend. So being that it was community raised funds, I took a personal interest in it and spent 17 hours yesterday in drafting search warrants, and we conducted 2 search warrants, or 1 search warrant, 2 searches last night. Unfortunately, didn't come up with the results that we were hoping for. There was involved in one of those search warrants. One of the suspects, well, both are youth. One was arrested on an unrelated outstanding warrant. Was dealt with, interviewed also for this, and released. So we're continuing to pursue that investigation. And it's unfortunate at times that it's not what you know, it's what you can prove at times. And understanding that it was about close to $9,000 of community funds that may benefit future carnivals. So there will be some further investigation that will take place, and we're hopeful that we can recover some of the funds.
Thank you for the report and the added information. I will say I'm happy to see you're going to be doing foot patrols again. It's been a number of years since I've seen that here.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can interact with our bylaw people on that as well. I'll open it up to questions.
Your mic is not.
I know it doesn't work.
You might have to get a different one because it won't record if it's not. No battery. I'll do that.
That's not gonna work.
Yeah, that's perfect.
We'll open it up to questions.
It's still not on. Push the button.
Now we'll open it up to questions. Anyone? Councillor Devlin. That's not working.
Thanks, Corporal Main.
It's working, it's just-
I just had a question, yes, a question. Now that we're sort of getting into springtime, and things are sort of opening up and things like this. I'm just wondering about drone regulations, and I'm wondering about the RCMP's role in sort of looking after some drone regulations. And I'm bringing that up only because we've had a few recent incidents where it just seems to be getting more and more aggressive, some of the drone use in town. I'm a drone user myself, and I sort of do pay attention to all of the rules, including all of the federal rules. Just this weekend, we had 2 incidents that were kind of scary. One, we had a drone go into an abandoned house on private property and go up and down, and then posted it on Facebook. That was next door to my house, so we're concerned about having drones in residential neighborhoods. And then much more scary, but it was beautiful footage. So don't get me wrong, I love the footage. Was the women's skidoo race. There's some gorgeous stuff online, except it was Hollywood style, but it wasn't a closed Hollywood set with stunt people. It was our residents. And at one point, one of the drones, actually you can see it hit one of the racers as head on in the video. And it's posted, and it's getting all sorts of likes and things like this. But I think we're getting very comfortable with drones. I'm wondering if the RCB maybe can put out an advisory about what's legal, what isn't, where to fly, just because it is under federal regulation. I know there's some bylaws that we can look at, certainly here at the municipal level, but perhaps something, an advisory, something. If we can do something like that, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, certainly, sir. There's, I know that, of course, the RCMP is responsible for federal policing of federal legislation. Myself, I'm very honest at admitting when I don't know a whole lot about certain things. And as far as drone regulations, I don't know a lot about that. I do know that the Northwest Territories was the very first jurisdiction in Canada to have a conviction for flying a drone in airspace, the Yellowknife Airport. However, I get what you're saying about the public safety aspect. I think going forward, and I'll certainly make note of it going forward, especially when we're having gatherings with lots of people, community events, that perhaps we do need to have some sort of a PR piece around operators, permits, what those regulations are, to make sure that, you know, obviously, if you're going 80 kilometers an hour and you hit a drone, it's gonna hurt. Yeah, or worse, right? So
If we had a 1-inch over, I think we would have had something pretty serious.
for sure.
So,
So that is something that we can look into for you, and I'll get you some answers for that for next meeting.
appreciate it. But do check out the footage because it's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Wainman.
Thanks for getting those posters out. Appreciate that. I see here you met with Children's First and discussed roads and pedestrians and safety. And you're talking about foot patrols. Did we somehow come up with people using our sidewalks instead of walking all over the road? I mean, that's the pedestrians. I brought it up last time. Is they're walking from the hospital on the wrong side of the road. There's this full sidewalk there. There's people that are drunk walking down all over the side, not on the sidewalks on the roads. Just a friendly reminder, I guess, because I see it under control.
Okay. And we can certainly do that. I share your concern with the Mackenzie route, because I just live off the Campbell there, and I always say to my wife, why are people walking on the sidewalk? Right.
And then, you know, I've seen a few slip and they're on the sidewalk, no one's gonna run them over, but if they slip in front of a vehicle on the wrong side of the road,
Sure.
you know, I never know what's gonna happen. So I just seen all this stuff you're doing, is it'd be nice just to remind people we have sidewalks for a reason.
Okay.
There's a lot of traffic out there. Thank you.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public question period. I guess we don't have any public here. 6.1, the minutes of the March 21st and 23rd, 2022 council meeting. Any questions, corrections? Deputy Mayor Kulikowski.
There's just some grammatical stuff later in the minutes. I don't know if that's, do you want it just emailed in and it can be fixed?
I think just an email would suffice for that.
And I guess then if council's okay with passing them and just sending those fixes in, or if we want to defer it to next meeting, either way is fine, but just to point those out. I know that it's,
That's right, this is a combined committee of the whole and regular council meeting. Okay,
I'll make a motion.
any other questions?
Oh, no.
Moved by Councillor Devlin, seconded by Councillor Gowans. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. 7.1, the action items list. Any questions? 8.1. Contribution agreement with the GMWT for operations and maintenance funding. The motion is be it resolved, Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the contribution agreement with the Government of Northwest Territories for O&M funding in the amount of $2,656,000. I need a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Kulikowski and Councillor Wainman. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion's carried. 8.2, contribution agreement with the government of the Northwest Territories for water and sewer funding. The motion is, be it resolved, the Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the contribution agreement with the government of the Northwest Territories for water and sewer funding in the amount of $1,385,000. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Gallons, Councillor Devlin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. 8.3. Contribution agreement with the government of the Northwest Territories for community public infrastructure. You will probably note the amount is $337,000 less than we got last year. That's significant, to say the least. In any event, I'll be making some phone calls on that. The motion is that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves the contribution agreement with the government of the Northwest Territories for community public infrastructure funding in the amount of $1,854,000. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Harder and Councillor Gallants. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Kulikowski.
Was there any indication given by the GNWT of the reason for that discrepancy? Like, was it a top up last year that they're not doing this year, or we don't have any idea what it is?
To be quite frank, I have no idea at this
Okay.
point. I did try to contact MACA, but my phone calls weren't returned,
Right, okay.
but I'll follow up on that. Councillor Wayman.
I was just gonna ask, gosh, but with today's inflation, that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean,
No.
everything's going up and they're going down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
so,
totally agree with you.
to put it very clear, it's like it should be way more, not less.
Right.
I mean, then this time, this what's going on lately with the world, it's just kind
You
of.
know, funding levels from municipalities are way behind in any event. Now, this just puts us further in the hole.
I mean, especially for our infrastructures, like the funding for our infrastructure, we're already having problems with that.
Yeah.
I mean, so be harsh about it, please.
I will. Okay, we have the mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Can't turn down what they gave us, for sure.
Can always ask for more, though.
Yeah. 8.4, the annual spring cleanup activities. I'm sure you've had a chance to read through this. We have 4 options.
So I have to, I need to leave.
Okay, 5 options, sir. Well, no, 4 options. Approve the recommend.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yes.
You just go out here and close the door.
Implications, the result of free tipping, the same as every year, the town will not receive the normal 50% fees that would be collected. This also applies to the contractor who operates the solid waste site on the contract of the town. It should be noted, however, that any tipping fees collected throughout the year are only an estimate, and there's no guarantee any eligible fees would be collected in any year. So should council wish to approve spring cleanup activities for 2022, the motion should be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby approves of the following spring cleanup activities for 2022. Free tipping for residential users from May 31st to June 5th. Free tipping for commercial and industrial users from May 21st to June the 5th. With the exception of construction and demolition debris and hazardous materials. 2 weeks, May 21st to June 5th. will be scheduled for large item residential pickup. Sponsorship of the Community Beautification Contest with categories for residential, commercial, and industrial properties. Support for the annual community zone cleanup. Support for the continuation of the water rebate program. Support for the continuation of the graffiti hotline program, and support for the development of a general series of ads and interviews about cleanup. This is basically the same thing we do every year. So there's nothing new in here. Would you agree, Deputy Mayor?
I believe so.
So I need a mover and a seconder, and then we can discuss it if you like. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kulikowski, seconded by Councillor Gallus. Any discussion? Councillor Devlin.
The 2 weeks of commercial fees, tipping fees, what's the cost to the town? Like, I mean, are we weighing, do we weigh this? Do we have some numbers from years past on what this actually costs? Just so we can, and I'm bringing this up only because I have heard that some large organizations do sometimes save up a little bit for this period of time. And so I'm just wondering if, you know, if we do have something down on paper, weight wise for these 2 weeks and can do some comparisons, we can figure out if this is working as intended. I'll put it that way. Thank you.
Okay, for residential users, there's no impact because it's free.
No, not for
all year
residential.
round.
It's more commercial.
Councillor Wainman has a
We
clarification.
did this last year too, blah, blah, blah. But anyways, it was 3,500 or something that was dumped with private, and it was like 11,000 with commercial. So the numbers were, we did this, we got questioned on this last year, I think the year before, and the year before that. So we do have, if Grant was here, he would be able to tell you right away, it was no substantial impact. And I represent a lot of the commercial people, and they, you know, I don't think too many people collect too much, but there is certain things that are held back, vehicles and tires and stuff, right? But a lot of those guys that run those commercial businesses, some of them are on a tight line, right? But like I said, last few years, we did go through it. I think last year Rick brought it up and Grant got the numbers, so I'm sure Grant could email you the numbers.
You have further?
Yeah, well, thank you, Councilor Wayman. I wasn't here last year. This is my first council, so I have some fresh questions, I think, that I'd like answered. And also, if you do represent some of the commercial businesses that have this, and I'm wondering, should you have recused yourself from this discussion?
I don't believe so, because it
Just asking.
impacts a number of people. Similar to putting a sewer line on a street. It impacts every resident.
Again, I'm just looking for the financial impact to the town for this. I'm just asking some questions. If the numbers aren't available tonight, if that can be the answer from the administration, that's fine. I'm just asking for some numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wayne, you had a follow-up?
Maybe I said it wrong. I'm not representing, just people, other businesses have come to me and asked what's the rules, and I've explained a few things. I mean, geez, let's not get tied in a knot over something so small.
Thank you. Any further discussion? That was out of line, Councillor Wayne.
Sure was.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We'll get those figures for you, Councillor Devlin. 8.5, appointment of 2022 community beautification. We should get, yeah. 8.5, the appointment of a 2022 community beautification contest judges. We have three options: decide which councillor and which staff member wishes to serve on the committee and appoint them in via motion, defeat the motion, or defer the item via motion with direction to administration on how to proceed. The motion is, be it resolved that Inuvik Town Council hereby appoints the following counselor and staff to the 2022 Community Beautification Contest Judging Committee. And we have two names to fill in. So I guess before we can even vote on this, number one, we need a volunteer from the council. Counselor Gallons?
Just quick clarification, on the previous motion, before I didn't have a chance to actually vote before the vote was called.
Sorry?
I was gonna vote in favor of the previous motion, and then the count was called, that's all.
I think they're actually going to have to defer this motion until we can get a staff member, unless Chitty wants to do it.
I think that
No.
Councillor
sorry.
Gallons is talking about 8.4.
I'm talking about 8.4, your worship. With respect to the tipping fees,
Okay,
then I was gonna actually vote in favor of the motion. And then the count was called.
being voted in favor.
I was gonna vote in favor of the motion, yes.
I thought I saw your hand up.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I'm sure I did. Okay. Anyway, any advice from council on 8.5? Should we defer it? Deputy Mayor Kolakowski?
It seems new to me that we would appoint a staff member to
Yeah, I can't remember that happening before.
the contest judging. Lise, is that a new request from admin or? Sorry.
I took the battery out. That's not gonna work. I think administration, we take a look at trying to streamline that contest with the Light Up the Town contest to try to make them kind of similar. In the past, two counselors or a counselor and staff have been for the Light Up the Lights contest. This is the first time. Usually what I've done, well, when I first came here, I was appointed because I was the new person in town, didn't know anybody, so they said, you're a judge. So I did that first year, and then the second year, I did the same thing to two new people that came to town. So that's what we've been doing year to year, and in a year where we haven't had any new staff, I've taken summer staff. Because a lot of them don't really pay attention to who lives where and whatnot, so they were the judges. Now this is new that we're going to actually appoint a counselor, now a counselor and staff. I would prefer to have two counselors as we do for the Light Up the Lights contest. Steve did it this year with two counselors, and he said it went seamlessly, and you know, that would, it kind of takes the hit off of, if anybody's dissatisfied with the way the judging went, you know, to blame council is one thing, but when they're hitting at staff, and they have in the past hit at staff that we were partial to certain people and whatnot, but you know, in all essence, the judging was done really fairly. Even the students, they would hide their marks from each other, so yeah. But yeah, it would be nice to have two counselors appointed, but I'm sure I could have one staff I could volunteer one staff to go with the counselor to judge the contest. And it's different from the Christmas or the Light Up the Lights one in that people have to register for this one. And so we only go to whoever places that they've registered, or wherever businesses have registered, those are the only ones that are judged. So it's not like where you have to drive around town for hours.
Yeah, I don't think there's any great rush for this because it says advertising will begin at the end of May each year, or within 1 week of being approved by town council. So I don't think it's urgent that we do this one tonight. Maybe we could defer it and poll the staff to find out who wants to be the staff member. And if we prefer, we can have two counselors. It's purely up to you. So what are your wishes? Do you want to defer it? Counselor Wayne.
What's the date for this?
Sorry?
What's the date? It's usually May, I know, but it's not on here. I don't see it unless
It says, the only thing I have here. Beautification program policy. It just says advertising will begin at the end of May each year, or within 1 week of being approved by town council. Advertised on the community channel, so on and so forth. 2 categories. The contest closing and judging dates will be chosen annually. So there's no set date. Deputy Mayor Kulikowski?
But most likely end of August,
Yeah,
right? Because you need that full growing season.
that would make
right?
sense. So
Sorry, usually it's near the beginning of August, like after the end of the first week, because then a lot of the plants start to turn and lose their petals and whatnot. So the public is, I know we did it a little late one year and everybody was really disappointed because the color wasn't left in their flower pots. So we try to get it done in, I'm saying the 6th to 10th of August in that time period. And, but it's usually put on all the advertisements. They have to register usually by the end of July, and then we go out and judge in around the end of the first week of August.
we can do this in the next council meeting, pick a counselor and a staff member. Because at this point, we have no idea who the staff member is. So,
They'll be voluntold,
yeah,
or it'll be me.
yeah, exactly. So should we defer it?
Yeah.
Everybody in
Yes.
agreement? I need a motion then to defer. Counselor Wayman. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kulikowski. I guess we have to set a specific date if we defer. Am I correct?
I believe that we have to deal with it at the next meeting.
Yeah, defer till the next meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. 9.1, bylaw 2686/GEN/22, repeal a bylaw that no longer has any force or effect. It's a mobile assessment bylaw. Was back in 1985. And it's been replaced under the Municipal Act, which has been replaced by the CTV Act. And there's no modern equivalent. As the Property Assessment and Taxation Act has completely changed the way mobile units are assessed. As a result, the authority for the town to prepare a mobile unit assessment roll as the bylaw contemplates no longer exists. So I need a mover and a seconder. Counselor Devlin. Counselor Gowans. First reading, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Second reading of the same bylaw, I need a motion on a mover and a seconder. Counselor Harder and Counselor Wayman. Discussion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Department head reports. Public Services, Director of Public Works report. You have it in front of you. Any questions? Counselor Devlin.
I know the Director of Public Works isn't here, but there's just no mention at all about possible structural, just the structural issues at the MSC, just where they're at as of the end of March.
Unfortunately, I don't have the answer for you right now. I know that Director Campbell was working on that and had discussions with the engineer. And so far, I guess the best guess is there's no problems, no major problems. I know that doesn't completely answer your question, but I hope it helps. Any other questions, Counselor Harder?
We have an update on the pool.
I don't have one, no, but I'm anticipating the end of this month.
Okay, thank you.
Fair enough.
At the end of the month, I may say another month, but it's hard to say. That was the last estimate I had from SAO grant. Any other questions I can't answer?
Capital project report,
Sorry,
the update for the pool is in the capital project report.
Is it?
So we're experiencing like delays with the contractor due to shortage of staff. So we're estimating like the completion would be sometime in May because of that.
Thank you.
10.2 financial report. Any questions on that? None. Protective services. Any questions? Capital projects report. Any questions on that one? Economic development and tourism. Questions? No. Community services report. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Could I have a mover and a seconder for the reports? Councillor Wainman and Councillor Devlin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Information items, we have the strategic priorities chart. And the minutes of our notes from the tourism stakeholders meeting. Next item on the agenda is council concerns. Any concerns? Councillor Wainman.
Remind all counselors, we should read our counselor handbooks. If you have personal problems, maybe to deal with them somewhere else. We represent the community of Inuvik and the concerns and the personal issues that are being brought to this table, they should be dealt with. I understand there's some of them, but maybe they're community issues too. But at the same time, this is a place where we represent the community, not our own special needs. We represent the community as a whole. And that's what I'd like to see, if instead of singularly taking on staff. I mean, there's been a lot of things in the last few months that I didn't agree with. And it's got to stop. This has got to be a tight council together, working together. What I did, I'm sorry about, but I'm really getting tired of the little nitpicking. It's got to be straightened out. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Wainman. Actually, it's not a bad idea to read the councillor's handbook. I do about once every 2 months just to refresh myself on it. So, and I'm not singling anybody out on this. It's probably a good education thing for all of us. Any other concerns? Councillor Gallons.
This is in regards to the fitness center and the age for supervised children. I know it's 13 to 15 at the moment. Is there any thought about lowering it to 12 to 15, provided that the parents and guardians are there to supervise the kids?
We've never thought of, or we haven't thought of it. What I would defer to legal and insurance, because I have a feeling that that's why that like 16 plus was okay, and then 13 to 15 with parental supervision. I know in some circles, it's deemed that anyone 12 and under physically, if they go above and beyond what they should be for a child, then it's actually damaging to them. And does a parent know that limit? A personal trainer might, but a parent or guardian may not. But I can certainly look into it and get a grant to ask legal and counsel what they would, or legal and insurance, what they would recommend.
If you can.
Yeah,
That'll
sure.
help a lot. And I'm thinking about this in the context of, we're gonna have activities, sports teams starting up again in the fall. So we may have questions about, can the junior high kids go into the gym and work out? Senior high kids go into the gym and work out. So if we can get the information and just be able to say, okay, for this reason, that's why it's 13 to 15. then that'd be very helpful.
Thank you. Any other concerns? Seeing none. We have no in camera tonight, So I need a motion to adjourn. Counselor Wayne, Counselor Hart, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.